As I approached my 40th birthday 9 years ago, my now husband and I, who had been together for 5 years at the time, had decided that we weren't planning to have kids. As two adults who'd gotten together a little later in life, both working for ourselves and used to a lot of freedom and independence, we'd had explicit conversations to make sure that neither of us had a strong longing for a child, and we'd both consistently expressed ambivalence at most. So as I approached 40, we'd really decided to close the door on that possibility. It wasn't on either of our minds, it was no longer a part of conversation, and we were just moving on with our content urban San Francisco lives. But then one day, as I came out of my usual 30-minute morning meditation, as I lingered on my cushion, I was struck, seemingly out of nowhere, with this visceral, physical sense of holding a baby girl in my arms. And even more strikingly and really jarringly at the time, I had this just crystal clear felt sense that this baby girl was meant to come through me. It was like I could sense the actual egg that she came from inside me. My whole being resonated with this clear sense that she was already on her way. In fact, not even just on her way, it really felt like she was already here, like this was a done deal, a foregone conclusion. Like this had already happened. The wordless internal message I was receiving was essentially, just step out of the way and let this being come through. It felt like it had nothing to do with me on the personal, relative, small s self level. It just felt like a choiceless choice. Like it was none of my small self's business. Felt like some kind of soul contract that was meant to move forward regardless of what my logical mind had to say about it. And after this strong intuitive hit subsided, my logical mind did come online with massive force. It was like, what? Are you insane? You guys already decided you weren't going to do this. You haven't been planning for this financially or otherwise. You live in one of the most expensive cities on the planet. This is insane. There's no way. But as I kept checking in every morning after that day during my meditation time, that intuitive felt sense in my body remained low and calm and quiet, steady and clear. It resonated with absolute unshakable truth. It just felt within me like, yep, this is happening. So after a number of days of quietly checking in internally this way with myself each morning, I decided to bring it up to my now husband. So I let him know I had something I wanted to chat with him about, and when we sat down together, I kind of sheepishly reported what had come up. That much to my shock, I kept having this crystal clear sense that there was a baby girl that wanted to come through for us. And his face immediately opened up into this expression of equal parts terror and thrill and delight. But after 5 years together, thankfully, he was by that point well-versed in how things tend to play out when I share about having had an intuitive hit like this, namely that these hits basically always end up proving true. And as he shared later, he had quietly and intuitively on his own part always believed that at some point I would experience just this type of shift. He shared that he'd always believed I would make an amazing mom and felt like I would probably have this sense at some point, but he didn't want to put that on me unless I was really feeling it. So we decided that I would go run the women's retreat in Costa Rica that I had planned for a few weeks from that point, which is always such a juicy place for me to connect with myself and life and sense into what feels truly true. And we said that if this same intuitive sense was still here when I came back, we would revisit the possibility together through a more practical lens. So I came back to San Francisco feeling soul-nourished and refreshed and clear-channeled, and yet that energetic sense of this specific little baby girl soul in my arms was just quietly there morning after morning in the same calm, steady, true feeling way. So we had some more strategic, practical conversations about whether we could actually pull this off. And thanks hugely to my now partner, my now husband's own intuitive clarity, we gave ourselves the green light to throw it up to the universe, let nature take its course, and just see what happened. So I went off birth control and the next month was pregnant, and 9+ months of a smooth pregnancy at age 40 later gave birth to that baby girl I'd felt coming, our now 7-year-old daughter, Audrey. So occasionally we might get an intuitive hit that arrives feeling crystal clear like this, undeniable, unshakable, with that choiceless choice, well, I guess this is just happening, quality. But I was able to notice and really receive that intuitive information as something that felt accurate on a soul level and important to take practical action on, only because I'd been intentionally nurturing my connection with this intuitive part of myself for years at that point. If I hadn't been steadily practicing tuning into and trusting my intuition as a valid source of information through tons of smaller intuitive practices over the years, my mind would no doubt have dismissed that felt sense of this baby in my arms as something silly, something that my mind just made up, something too ridiculous, too illogical, too woo-woo to trust enough to follow up on. Which is to say, our connection with our intuition is something that strengthens over time through consistent attention and intention. And when we're not clear on how intuition shows up in our daily lives and in our unique bodies for us personally, we often misinterpret, override, or dismiss our intuitive cues, which leads to a question that has come up from a lot of my coaching clients over the past 15 plus years as a coach, which is, how do I know whether this is actually my intuition or fear talking? This is a vital distinction to make, and if this question comes up for you, there's a real kernel of wise discernment embedded within it. Because on the surface, it absolutely can seem like fear and intuition are almost indistinguishable from one another. I actually experienced this side of the spectrum myself not long ago. I'd been going through a phase of really intense fear and doubt about something in my life, and as I was in that dysregulated, scarcity-oriented space, I was feeling completely disconnected from my intuition. It felt like no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't tap into this core self, capital S self, centered access to what actually felt true or right for me at the deepest level about this particular issue. And I kept bonking within these fear-based, problem-focused mental and energetic loops. I just felt completely stuck, cut off from the intuitive sense that I had come to be able to generally rely on accessing after years of cultivating that connection. I was just locked into this real state of freeze around this particular issue. But after months of trying to feel my way into what was really going on in that moment at the deeper levels that had my internal younger parts so petrified and frozen about moving forward in this particular area, I did eventually arrive at a breakthrough. And a visceral, physical, energetic wave washed through me. And in an instant, I understood with crystal clear clarity that my intuitive sense had actually been delivering me accurate cues throughout that entire phase. As I looked back in hindsight, I saw that I actually did have an accurate intuitive sense of what had been going on around where I was feeling stuck. But the thing was, my conscious mind wasn't able to notice or register those intuitive messages as accurate truths at the time because I was caught in an amygdala hijack mode where our prefrontal cortex goes offline and fear had taken over my brain and body so fully that my intuitive whispers were being drowned out by voices of worry and doubt and fear. And because I was caught in such a sticky loop of scarcity-tinged fear without felt access to my embodied core self, I wasn't able to notice or feel, much less trust, those intuitive senses as truth within that dysregulated state. All of which is to say, it can be really tricky to parse out what is an accurate intuitive sense that I can trust to lead me in a growth-rich, soul-aligned direction versus what is a mental message that feels true but is actually self-protective fear sneakily disguised as truth. So for instance, does a particularly magnetic, repetitive thought that keeps demanding your attention, does it keep coming up with such force and consistency and repetition because you're meant to be paying more attention to it in a wise and genuinely useful way? Or is your mind fixating or perseverating on that particular thought because you're on the precipice of taking a step out of your comfort zone in some expansive new way, and your protective parts, driven by a drive to keep you safe at all costs, are pulling out all the stops to try to keep you in the status quo comfort zone, safety zone. So while intuition and fear may at first glance seem similar, when you really tune into the more nuanced layers of these states, you'll find that their energetic tone and flavor are actually really distinct from one another, which is great news. Getting to the heart of this is it fear intuition question, one consistent truth I've discovered in getting more connected to my own intuition over the years and in working with clients is this: intuition doesn't feel scary, whereas at the risk of stating the obvious, fear does. An intuitive hit might seem strange or illogical when you bring your cognitive mind online to analyze it after you felt that initial sense in your body. But in the moment, intuition doesn't send adrenaline or cortisol coursing through your veins like safety-driven, amygdala-activated fear does. Intuition actually feels like the opposite of fear in the body when you really look closely. Some other commonly felt distinctions between fear and intuition. Intuition tends to feel clear, calm, quiet, simple, neutral, meaning without emotional charge behind it, concise, expansive, patient, kind or warm, spacious, even-keeled, effortless, settled and steady, wise, visceral, ringing with the truth in a bodily felt way. So even if our intuition is pointing us to wisely say no to something in our lives, the felt sense of an intuitively on point no tends to have a receptive, clear yes, this feels right, energetic quality to it in the moment. An intuitively clear sense of something just feels right, resonant, congruent. Intuition offers a clear, simple, neutral, concise sense of simply what's true, what feels true in this moment. Fear, on the other hand, tends to feel loud, urgent, repetitive, contractive, desperate, urgent, narrow and harsh, black and white, all or nothing, now or never. And here's another key distinction between intuition and fear. Intuition will never feel or sound pushy, critical, bullying, shaming, or guilt-inducing. One important caveat: fear does exist for an extremely important evolutionary and biological purpose. It kicks our system into activation to let us reflexively propel ourselves out of the path of an oncoming car in a crosswalk, or to cross the street when the hair on our arms stands up as we cross paths with a particular stranger on the street as we're walking to our car by ourselves at night. Those are times that we absolutely want to heed fear. That's literally the purpose that fear exists for. So we are by no means demonizing fear or trying to bypass fear when it shows up for its intended and useful biological purpose. What we're looking at through a more nuanced lens here is when there is not an actual imminent physical threat to our safety or well-being presenting itself in this present moment, when we're sitting at home by ourselves in a safe space, reflecting on something we might want to move toward in our next professional chapter, say. In that case, how do we distinguish what's coming from fear versus what's coming from our genuine intuition? So I'd love to give you a firsthand taste of the difference between the felt qualities of fear versus intuition for yourself, because as always, talking and thinking conceptually about these topics only gets us so far. When it comes to the work of embodiment and intuition, we have to really experience these practices in our bodies in a direct way to really start to get them. So I'd like to invite you to get present with me here in an undistracted way for 5 minutes or so to really gift yourself a felt sense glimpse of what we're talking about here. So taking a few deep breaths, maybe in through the nose and out through the mouth with a sigh. Maybe gently shaking out any excess or stagnant energy that's lingering in the body. And either allowing the eyes to close or softening your gaze down a few feet in front of you. And starting to notice the points of contact between your feet and the floor, between your seat and the seat beneath you. The feeling of your back leaning against any support behind you. And just allowing yourself to start to settle into the sense of being alive in this body, in this moment, just as things are. And now bringing to mind a situation or decision that you've been feeling uncertain or on the fence about in your life. Nothing huge, please. Just something you've been noticing that you've been having a little trouble getting clear around, whether to take action on something or what type of action to take. It's something that just feels a little bit sticky in your daily life recently. And bringing this sticky area to mind. And checking in to see if there are any parts of you that are feeling some fear around this issue, or worry, or doubt. Any fearful quality of energy. And inviting that fearful or worried or doubtful part forward. Maybe even imagining handing this scared part of you a microphone and giving this fearful part the floor to express any concerns it has about you moving forward with this situation or making a decision. Just go ahead and let the fearful voice come through. You can hear fear's words in your head or vocalize them out loud, whichever you prefer. Noticing the words this part speaks. Noticing the tone with which it speaks these words. Notice the pace at which these words are being spoken. Are they coming quickly or slowly? And now noticing where in your body these words are reverberating within you. What's happening in your chest, in your belly, in your throat, in your back or shoulders. Noticing any sense of energetic narrowing within you as you listen and feel into this fearful part. Noticing any other sense of feeling or energy or sensation in your body as you really sink into this fearful mode of looking at this situation. Any sense of pressure, urgency, desperation, or bracing, contraction or freezing. And starting to draw this exploration to a close, gently opening your eyes if they were closed and taking a few breaths to clear out that fear. You might gently shake it out of your body, just releasing that fear energy. And coming back to baseline. And now imagining you're taking a dry erase board eraser and wiping the mental and energetic whiteboard clear, so you have a clean, fresh slate within you. Once again, taking a few deep cleansing breaths and allowing the body to start to soften and relax. Allowing the mind to start to soften and relax here a bit too. Trusting that for these few minutes, whatever wisdom is meant to arise into conscious awareness will do so, with no forcing and no mental effort required. Just allowing your awareness to start to drop down out of your head and down, down, down toward the core of your being, right in the center of your body, your abdomen, through the chest and into the belly, the gut. Letting your awareness settle into a deep, quiet place within the core of yourself. With every exhale, settling more calmly and deeply into this quiet, still place in your core. And within this deep, quiet space, you have access to all the clarity you seek. Now posing the question out loud or gently internally, what do I most need to remember or be aware of right now? Without any forcing or analyzing, just being open and receptive to any sense that may bubble up in response to that inquiry. That sense could be in the form of a feeling, a sensation, an image, or a sound. color, just allowing anything that arises to arise and allowing it to come into conscious awareness in a receptive, spacious way, without trying to do anything with this felt sense. Now just getting curious about it, intending to get to know this intuitive wisdom felt through your body in this moment a bit. What is the energy of this intuitive sense like in your body? Is there any sense of temperature or texture to it? How does your body feel as you connect to this intuitive wisdom? Allowing yourself to feel the energy and sensations of your intuitive knowing through this body for a few more moments here. And when you feel ready, gently allowing your eyes to reopen and returning gradually to the space around you. Welcome back. So, what did you notice as a felt sense difference between the fearful parts and voices and your intuitive self? I hope even this little firsthand experience can give you a little bit clearer sense of internal sensations or textures that you can stay on the lookout for in a moment when you're trying to discern between fear and intuition. And this is a way that you can start to work in a practical daily life way to connect to your intuition by slowing down, dropping down out of your head and into the body, into the center of yourself, not your small s self, but your capital S self. And checking in with questions along the lines of, what feels most true in this moment? What feels most aligned at the deepest level right now? What do I most need to remember or be aware of right now? What feels like the right next small step forward? The more practiced you get at distinguishing between fear and intuition as they register energetically through your body, the less time and energy you'll have to waste ruminating on whether something is right for you or not. Clarity will start to come more quickly and clearly to you in general in your daily life. And I've got another video for you with some more specific practical ways to nurture your intuitive connection that you can check out as well if you'd like to go deeper with cultivating your intuition. As always, I'd love to hear what feels interesting to you as you explore this terrain in the comments below. Till next time.